Start?
Yeah.
Okay, so the topic is Tracht gut wird Zein gut. It's a well-known topic. I'll start off with the Gleichwertel. There are handouts coming. Specifically, there's some igris and different minus in the handout. He told me the handout will be coming soon, so I'll start, and then as the handout comes, you can continue from there. So I'll start with the Gleichwertel. There was once a Rav, and he was giving a shir on Bitochin in Eretz Yisrael. And his students, after the shir of Bitochin that he gave at Tuv Tam, so he took them into the Spazieren forest. And Vayi Ayoim, and there was a bear coming right across. And they suddenly see a bear. So the Rav, the one who was giving the drash on Bitochin, quickly climbs up the tree and finds himself safe. So Talmidim ask him, Harav, Harav lamad midas habitachin. So the Rav answered, Liyeter bitachon aliti al etz. For more bitachin, I decided to go up the tree. There's bitachin, but there's more bitachin. So there's obviously a need to understand the catchphrases we have. Many, many minus. Tracht gut wird sein gut, bitachon. They're obviously meant not to be words we throw, but thought patterns we have. And thought pattern is an easy word, but it's obviously a reflection that's supposed to be real and have real impact in people's lives. So there's a famous sikh in Chilek Lamed Vav L'Kut Sichos Shmois everybody talks about. Essentially, this sikha splits the outcome of midas habitachin in two categories. In other words, if a person is looking for impact in life from midas habitachin, there are two areas where it happens. One is the chayvus alavavis, not necessarily tracht gut, and a second level is tracht gut. So let's split the two. Number one is really dealing with menuchas hanefesh. Number one is the chayvus alavavis, and we're going to go into that. How does a person encounter daige, real daige, not fake daige, not daige that comes out of a person obsessive, but real daige from real issues, and still be b'menucha? And that's essentially the chayvus alavavis. The chayvus alavavis has a discussion on how that happens, and the Rebbe has that in many, many minds. The second stage in Tracht gut is to affect change. It's a discussion on the mind, fascinating discussion, on how the mind can actually affect change, and within that there are different kinds of changes. But let's start with the first point. First point is the idea of anxiety, how a person can deal with daige in life. So I'll share with you some minus, just to give you an idea of how the Rebbe takes this. And what I'm looking to do is to find an understanding of how to make this practical. There's going to be real daigas of life. People write into the Rebbe with real problems. And instead of the Rebbe giving a bracha, and instead of the Rebbe saying, bracha v'hatzlacha, everything is going to be good, ask alatzi, and the Rebbe says, no, I need you to do something, I need you to affect change, I need you to answer your issue, and he gives them a prescription called bitachin. So, he's talking to someone who's dealing with a real issue. Obviously, there's got to be a real answer. There's got to be something that the person's got to do to be able to manage their daige. Just to quote one. So a person writes, this is in the handout, but the handout's not here. Person writes, Oidis hanervezkeit shaloi. He's nervous. Says the Rebbe, I give you a prescription, learn this and this, chayvus alavavis, and if you're going to learn that, you're going to have bitachin, and you won't be nervous. So the Rebbe is not being holy here, he's being practical. He's telling a person who's dealing with a real emotional problem, and telling them to go through a thought process that will actually have impact on that real emotional problem. Rebbe writes, "B'shalosim ma'ze menuchas hanefesh." Eini moving mahu asafik b'davar. I don't know what your question is. If your question is how to get there, that's dependent on the bitochen. Menucha is a real thing in life. Menucha is not a spiritual book you read. So the Rebbe is saying menucha, daige, nervousness, real feelings that we have in life. He's sending us to this midas habitochen, a thought process that can really affect. It's almost that bitachin in the words we use today is a therapy. It's a mind process that really should change the way certain feelings happen. Another letter the Rebbe writes, Lahatovas matziv briusoi. So do what the Reifim tell you, but don't forget, chayzik habitachin is also important there, and that will help you, especially going through that matzah. So there's many, many letters that deal with this, and the common denominator is people dealing with a real area of nervousness, a real area of emotion, and the Rebbe says, go. Bitachin is going to help. So how do we understand this? What is really the thought process that allows a person to deal and manage daige to the extent of being menucha? You see, menucha means that you're managing daige. And that comes as an outcome from a thought process. And so the klal is like this, before we go into the answer. The klal is brought down in the Chassidus in many places. Every feeling has a thought. Every feeling is rooted in a thought. There's no feeling that you can't trace back to a thought. That's the process of how feelings happen. So if a person has daige, what we need to do is trace back to why are they uncertain, and a certain thought process that will help certainty, bitachin, help a person feel confident, will take away that thought of uncertainty and lead a person to tranquility. So it goes like this. Daige is rooted in uncertainty, and bitachin, which is certainty, leads to menucha. So what's that root, that foundation in the head that creates uncertainty, that allows the feeling of daige to take place? So I'll share with you 3 different letters and 3 different problems. Real problems in life. It's always easier to have real life examples in the sense of how bitachin can address them instead of saying it in a hypothetical way. So I'll give you 3 examples, real letters that people wrote into the Rebbe with real problems. And again, the idea of bitachin is supposed to help. First letter, b'negea mezene, parnasa. So a person writes into the Rebbe that he's not feeling well. All the manamekaymas are in the handout. He writes into the Rebbe he's not feeling well and his business is suffering. Why is his business suffering? Because I guess it was a small business and he was the person who runs the business, and if he's not there, it's not going to operate the same way. So he writes into the Rebbe that his wife and children are chipping in, but they don't have the experience to take over the business and manage it the same way he does. And so therefore he's very nervous. Why is he nervous? Was wird Zein? He's not meshugah, he's not obsessive. It's a very normal consequence of his situation. He writes into the Rebbe, what should he do? So here you have a normal case of daige. The Rebbe writes back to Bitach. What do you want from him? What do you really want from this fellow? Like, how are you going to take away his reaction that he has? It's 9 pages.
Oh, 9 pages each?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have more.
How does he take away the reaction he has to a normal situation and take that daige and take it away? What do you want him? You see, and here's an important point. You can't force an emotion to go away. You need to help the mind have a new thought process that gives birth to a new emotion. You can't say, don't worry. I have a reason why I'm worried. So you need to go to the reason and tell me what in the reason What in the equation of my daige, which is really in my mind, should I stop, should I change, that will change my emotion? So tell me what I should do. Everything points to daige. Case 1. Case 2 is a case of chaye. Case of a person who's not feeling well, and he was asking not a bracha for parnasa, but a bracha for chaye. Person writes to the Rebbe, he's in the hospital, and he had kama operations, kama nituchim. So that means either he's very ill, or they didn't do well, and they had to do it again, but he had a few operations. So it's not a in and out situation, it seems more complex. And he's boidik besifrei harafua. In those days they didn't have Google, so he had sifrei harafua that I guess he brought in different books of harafua that he's looking to find psaha, and he's very worried. Says the Rebbe bitochin. Again, you have someone who has a reason to have daige. He obviously, what do you want him to change in his mind that's going to change his feeling? How could he not have don't? What do you mean don't? I have a reason. My mind is telling me something that leads me to a reason of daige. And the third letter is a beautiful letter on shidduchim. The Rebbe writes to a girl, it's actually a very unique letter. The girl starts off the letter, and she writes to the Rebbe, she can't find the right one. She uses that word, passige mensch. She has a lot of atzois, but she can't find the right one. So the Rebbe writes back to her and takes her word, passige mensch, which is the right one. The Rebbe says, if you change the way you look at things, then you'll find the right one. So she was writing it expecting a bracha, like a goodie bag to come at her. And the Rebbe says, no, it's your fault. You change the way you look at things, and suddenly you're going to find the right one. And the Rebbe in that letter goes through 3 different thought processes on how to go ahead with shidduchim and be able to change how you look at things and be able. One of the thought processes is Megei B'tachin. Says the Rebbe, often, why does a person get stuck in a shidduch? Why could a person get stuck? Says the Rebbe, because they're afraid of the future. They heard Reuben and Shimon, Rachel, Leah, they heard different stories, and so the unknown can paralyze someone for making a decision. Everything looks good, but who knows? Maybe X is going to happen, maybe Z is going to happen. It did happen to my chaver, this chaver, and that chaver. And the Rebbe says this paralyzes people for making a decision. When a person faces the unknown, so that suddenly paralyzes them from making a decision. Turns around the Rebbe and says, how do you deal with that? The Rebbe continues and says, it's actually a very important, I'm going to validate that daige. And the Rebbe says, when people get married, it's a iberashung, it's a life experience that shakes people, and they actually do change. So even though you know someone, the unknown actually will bring change. So he's intensifying this person's fear of the unknown. And then the Rebbe says, bitachon. First you intensify their fear, and you tell them, bitachon. What's this bitachon? How does a person deal with real life issues? Real reasons to be anxious, real reasons that cause a person anxiety, and you're throwing at them bitachon. What does that really mean? How can a person change the equation? Now that you do have the handout, let me tell you what we're up to in the handout. I went through page 1 with you. Page 1 is letters that I mentioned in the beginning, before we go to the answer. Letters that I mentioned in the beginning on nervousness, on the refuah, where the Rebbe says bitachon is the answer. Page 2 is a sicha in Chelek Lamed Vav, where the Rebbe outlines that the first step in bitachon should lead to menucha. And now we're up to page 3. So I want to bring out like this. There's a shocking letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe. If I would ask you, before you look at any papers, If I would ask you, anybody sitting here, please teach me in English the word bitachon. This is a beautiful exercise to do. Anybody, teach me the word bitachon in English. The word confidence will come, the word trust. Did anybody say optimism? Look at page 3, top of page 3, a mind of the Friedke Rebbe. Top of page 3. Achais mahadrochis of the Friedke Rebbe. He nikris beloshen ha'olam optimism or beloshen ha'chasidus bitachon. The Friedke Rebbe is clearly putting it on the button that it's a way of thought. And there's many sikhs that discuss this, and I want to discuss this for a second. In other words, this is not a spiritual giving up. So, it's not like I'm saying, the Eibishter is going to take care of me. It's that my mind is convinced and thinking in a specific pattern of life. Optimism and someone who's pessimistic are two ways of looking at life. And optimistic is essentially going to be a way of how our minds look at life. And the idea is like this. In one word, what would be the common denominator from all three scenarios we had a second ago? You had three scenarios. Let's try to find a common denominator. And this common denominator is going to put in one word the roots of where Daige comes from. In one word, it's the unknown. And it goes like this. The mind travels through life in Bani Chayim Zein. When the mind is dealing with things it knows, it's in control. So your feelings are in control. Because I know, so I'm comfortable. I'm calm. When your mind is coming face to face with the unknown, out of control, so your feelings go out of control. And that's where Daige comes. Nervousness comes. In all three cases that the Rebbe had a second ago, the person who's dealing with a health issue, why is he bedaige? Because it's unknown. It's so complex. He does not know. So he's coming face to face with a part of reality which is called unknown. And our mind is wired to know. That's what our mind does. It's always seeking to know. That's the role of the mind. The mind, wherever it goes, and the mind is us, is constantly saying why, where, what. Tell me how I can get it. And if the mind doesn't get it, the mind is shocked because it can't enter that space. So you feel Daige. So there's a sikh where the Rebbe quotes a Gemara. Very, very interesting Gemara. And this Gemara is supposed to change our perception of reality. In other words, this reality that we're facing now, we're going to be able to come back into the same reality of the unknown and the known. Unknown hastes in Yonim that are not totally in us. Known hastes in Yonim that are totally in us. And we're going to be able to walk back into that same situation, but with a different sense of confidence. And the Gemara says like this. It's a Gemara in Baba Basra. And this is a Gemara quoted B'Keshet B'Tochen. It's like a favor from the Gemara in Agoda. The Gemara says like this. Why did the Eibishter create the world doimelach sadro? Similar to a porch. What does it mean similar to a porch? Says the Gemara, usually a porch has 4 walls. But the Eibishter created this world with only 3 walls. Why? It's odd. It's obviously a mashal. We're going to soon see what the nimshal is. Says the Gemara, the Eibishter created it with 3 walls. Someone's going to come along and say, he's the Eibishter. We're going to say, okay, go fill up the 4th wall. I left it empty for you. Go ahead. You really azayet shemedam? Go ahead, go do it. That's the Gemara. The Maral explains, and Chassidus takes this Gemara, and Chassidus explains like this. You know what the Gemara is alluding to? The Gemara is alluding to the age-old question, why did the Eibishter create the world imperfect? 3 walls. You look around in life, there's no perfection found. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect banai, no perfect chaye, no perfect mezene. The Eibush is a kol yachol. Imagine you have a person who builds a luxury building, and he makes a dilapidated door. Eventually, you built a building, you put billions of dollars into the building, and planning. You couldn't just make it right. What do you care? Why did you create an imperfect world? And that's the shaila of the Gemara. Imperfection is 3. It should have been 4. Why did he make it imperfect? Says the Gemara. The Eibusher did it on purpose. There's a specific design here that he wants us to go ahead in life with and carry that thought process as we hit moments in life. And ideas like this, the Eibusher wanted us to recognize anybody is going to seek perfection in life. We're going to tell him, you're not realistic. We're going to talk to the mind. This is a deep thought here. We're going to talk to the mind. As the mind enters life, there are 2 kinds of minds. A healthy mind should recognize, it's more realistic to recognize I'm not in control, and perfection was never created. And so therefore I'm going to be in control of the things that are in my hands, and allow the one who is out of control to be in control of those things that are out of control. It's more realistic to do that than to constantly allow our minds to be dragged into uncontrollable areas. Someone who walks around all the time, even in a realistic way, anybody who wants to get anything done will never know everything before you do anything. You have to start. And there's always going to be changes. So you have to be comfortable with what you know and recognize what I don't know is not supposed to be known at this stage. That's how the Eibusher created life. In other words, a mind goes through life. There's a healthy recognition, I don't have to know everything. It's sick to expect to know everything. In other words, this is the real healthy mind. Optimistic means, bitachon means, the mind is healthy. That the mind is trained to recognize the domains where it does belong, and the areas where it doesn't belong, it pulls itself out. It allows, there's a Tzemach Tzedek writes, I'm going to give you 2 examples here. A story that I once heard, and then a letter of the Tzemach Tzedek. Maybe I'll do the opposite. Maybe I'll say the story first, then the Tzemach Tzedek. So it's a siyait. It's actually the same thing, but I'll say the story first. Sometimes when you hear a story from a regular person, and then you'll see that Tzemach Tzedek said the same thing. Someone sent to me, when I once gave this class, someone sent me a nice video, a pilot. One of the pilots that flew to bomb the Iraqi reactor. This is in 1981 it was, right? They bombed the Iraqi reactor. One of them was Ilan Ramon. When he flew on the mission, before he went on the mission, so intelligence briefed 6 or 7 pilots that went, that one of them will not return. Why? Because the surprise factor is lost by the last plane in. So they're the hardest to get out. So you're coming in with 6 planes, the one that comes first is least. The last one, they already have a chance to retaliate. So the assessment was he won't return. He was the youngest, v'lachein, he was the last pilot. So they asked him, Zagmir, how did you feel when you went out on this mission? So you're going on a mission where you have every reason to be frozen. Statistics say you're not going to return. Intelligence is not stam. That means they know what they're talking about. How do you go on a mission? You can't just sit and cruise. You need to focus. Pilot is a very complex, and they have to go under the radar. There's focus that's needed every minute for the few hours that they have until they fly there. So they asked him, how did you do it? And he said as our line, he said, as pilots we're trained to focus on what we do know, and the unknown we leave up to fate. Tzemach Tzedek writes that there's a lav in the Torah for soldiers to have pachad. He said, how you talking? How can you give a lav to soldiers to have pachad? It's a fear, it's an emotion. So he says, no, the Torah is talking to the mind. Torah says you have to train the mind not to have fear. Exactly like that soldier said. And that's exactly what the first level of bitachon from the Chavos Halavavis is exactly that. We all drive planes through life. Comes along the Chavos Halavavis and says like this. Person is hitting moments of daige, whether it's banei, chayim, zein. At this stage of bitachon, we're not looking to change the scenario. We're looking to manage daige. We're looking to be able to walk into a situation and stay calm. Manage my emotion. And that starts from the head. If I walk in, recognizing there are areas that are not mine, I slice the reality. And I'm laser focused on what I could do and allow my mind to stay there. And I consciously pull my mind out of those things I can't do and allow fate. Eibishter. In other words, what I'm doing is inviting Eibishter in my mind. What I'm doing is I'm slicing my mind into 3 walls and 4 walls. 3 walls is where I am. The 4th wall is not mine. If you keep on going at someone else's territory, then of course he's going to bite you. Don't go there, he won't bite you. So it's in the mind that I'm able to travel in such a way that this is where I am and this is where I'm not. And that's the first level of bitachon.
This is all very good if the person is daige. Is the fact that this guy in the hospital, he doesn't know, will he be well, will he not be well? I need to know what's going to be, I don't know what's going to be. But what if his daige is not from uncertainty or from the unknown? He's dying is the possibility his sickness is going to continue. Not because he's frustrated at the fact that there's a black hole over here with endless possibilities. I don't know what's going to be. If that was the case, then you're right. What could be the daige is the fact that his prognosis is very bad, and he's worried it's going to be azoi.
So the pilot.
Not for the uncertainty.
Good question. The pilot was a case like that. He was diagnosed to die. In other words, it goes like this. The mind, the first level is, there's 2 powers in the mind. In the first level, the power of the mind is to focus. If I find in every situation areas where I could do, and I train my mind to say, if I can't do anything about it, why put my mind there? In other words, this is my...
Now you're saying, besides the fact that we have to accept the fact that I don't have to know what it's going to be. I'm not going to leave to know if I'm going to get out of this personal problem or not. But you're saying, besides that, worrying about it is not going to be helpful. That's what you're saying.
Not only is it not going to be helpful, I'm a realistic person. Why should I think about things that are not mine? I have a shutuf. There's me and a shutuf. My shutuf deals with the things that are out of control. My job is to deal with the things. I have to wake up in the morning and I have to say, what could I do? Not what I can't do. And how does the mind allow? The mind is right away creeping into things that I can't do. Because the mind is recognizing that's not mine. In other words, there's action. And that's a realistic, this is any business person, any person who does anything is going to say, there's an area you don't know. There's always going to be something you don't know. In other words, it's a healthy recognition of what my domain really is. And the more you do, the more you see, then the word bitachon suddenly means bracha, suddenly the things, because you allowed him into your mind, because you allowed the Eibishter into your mind, into your thought process, into the way you go ahead with things. So there's a bracha even in the things you do. And suddenly you can see a tzlacha, like the pilot, who came back. That's the first level of bitachon. The first level of bitachon is not saying that it will be good, but it's saying I don't have to go there. It's simply allowing menucha. It's not changing vet Zein good. It's not changing the situation. It's changing my emotion. It's allowing me to be a functional person. So I'm dealing with a terrible situation, but I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to tell myself, so what could I do? Which area of ishtalus I could do? And the areas that are beyond, I'm going to let. I consciously have that. No one is saying that it's easy, but this is something that even a goy is shaykh to.
This is like Rabbi Akiva.
This is a goy. Today goyim.
This idea, Tracht good.
Tracht is a higher level. This first level of simply allowing myself to walk. I'm not saying tzoro. Even these 3 cases that we had, the shidduchim case, for example, the unknown. And the case of even the hospital case, where they're in a these are not cases that a person is cherev v'nachas al tzavari. These are cases that there's something bad down the road. You know, the idea is like this: I can either paralyze the known through focusing on the unknown, or I can live in the known by separating myself from the unknown. And that's what bitachon means. Bitachon means I made a conscious decision in my mind. I hit something, I ask myself, what could I do? I split. I walk into a situation, I say, what is biyacholti? What's not biyacholti is nishmaina. But if I could do it, it's yemaina. So where is real daiga? Real daiga comes from things that are not a maisha. So why did you go there? And that's what the Rebbe was answering those people. There's 2 letters. The Rebbe writes to a lady, he writes, she's very nervous about something. The Rebbe says, why do you say the word very? The word very means you're over-focused. What is he trying to say? What he's trying to say is, why are you saying very? Because you're very focused on very much of things that are very much not known and very much not in your control. So you're very, very uncontrolled. So the word very means, another letter, a lady writes to the Rebbe, she's crying because she's in such a bad situation. The Rebbe says, was weinst du? Was kennst du tun? So crying is good for pain, but it's not good if you're desperate. Desperate is going to be the unknown. Pain is in the known. The Rebbe was not trying to not empathize. The Rebbe was just simply trying to split the different kinds of crying. That's the first level of bitachon. The first level is a level that Rebbe writes in many letters, a shaykh to goyim. It's not shaykh. It's not. In other words, it's an easier in the letter to the shidduch, it's shaykh to everybody. Every decision is going to be something unknown. It's going to be something who knows. There's always going to be a who knows that can paralyze the known. Healthy people manage who knows. It gets harder when the who knows is more terrible. But in ordinary situations, the who knows always will paralyze the known. Recognizing that who said I'm supposed to know the who knows. And that's a thought process in the mind. That's what soldiers do. Someone once told me that a soldier trains 9 months for 3 seconds. Why? What's the training of 9 months for 3 seconds? So he says people usually respond in the shas sakana, they freeze. The whole 9-month training is so the soldier should respond a half a second quicker than everybody else, and that saves his life. Bitachon means you're training the mind to respond differently. And that saves lives. That saves menucha. That brings menucha. That allows people to function differently. That's the chevis levavos. Good. That's the first nekuda. If that's not enough, so the Rebbe has a second point. Before I go to the second point, I'll just summarize this by a story of the Alter Rebbe. There was once someone in Nachtan Terad, I think it was the Alter Rebbe. It's brought down one of the stories, and he says he needs a Hiron of Vedas Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe sent him to one of the Talmidei HaMagid. I don't remember, maybe I'm mixing up the names, but the idea was like this. He comes to one of the Talmidei HaMagid, and it's freezing outside, he's knocking on the door, it's very cold outside. And he's knocking, and they're not answering. The tzaddik is not answering. After a while, he finally opens the door. So he says, it was freezing outside, why didn't you open the door? He said, I wanted to teach you a Hiron of Vedas Hashem. What's the Hiron? I wanted to teach you that not everyone who knocks on your door do you have to answer. Our head has thoughts knocking every moment, like pop-up ads. And the idea of bitachon really means a person who's conscious of the thoughts and inviting certain thoughts and disinviting others. And that leads to different feelings that come out of certain thoughts. And that's the first level of bitachon. Good. Let's go to the second level. The second level of bitachon is brought down in the Yerushalmi. I don't know why he doesn't have the paper here. It's paper 5. The Yerushalmi says like this. This is where Tracht with Zein comes. And this also, Laha'ir, the Rebbe says, is Shaykh to Goyim. The second step. Not the third, but the second step is. There's a Yerushalmi that says something that today you'll find in the Goyim saying this. And the Yerushalmi says as follows. Ve'heisir Hashem mimcha kol choyli. It's a pasuk. Says the Yerushalmi, what's the choili? Zeharayin, the thoughts. In the Mitzudas, in the side, in Mefarshim, he explains, what do you mean the thoughts? So he says like this, Kol pachat starts in the thought, and Kol choili starts from the pachat. So when you clear the thoughts, you clear the choili. And he says, clearly over here, the Eibishter is saying like this. If the Eibishter, and he says the other way around too, if the Eibishter wants to make a person a chayla, he doesn't allow him to clear his thoughts. Almost like the Baal Shem Tov says, Mamish the Yerushalmi. So the Yerushalmi over here is saying, the mind doesn't only control menucha, but it controls chayli. My scary thoughts scary feelings can lead to chayli. That's what the Yerushalmi says. The Frierdiker Rebbe quotes this in a letter about his daughter, and he tells her, and I have that letter in the handout, and he tells her, I don't know why they don't have it, page 5, and he tells her, don't worry, Tracht gut wird Zein gut, like the Yerushalmi. So he says, Tracht gut wird Zein gut, step 2, impacting change, he says the Mark is Yerushalmi. It's a Tzedek says it, but then you have to get Yerushalmi. In other words, here you see something new. And this is already another level. And what this is saying is the mind is so powerful, begashmius, that when a person allows only positive thoughts, and in order to do that, we explained before, it's through separating the what-ifs, which is negativity, which is statistics, and allowing the one who's in charge of that to take care of it. So you're allowing the Eibishter into your life. That impacts choili, and that impacts the refuah. Now, to take this to the next level, this is in regards to, generally speaking, the power of the mind to affect menucha, to affect, take away choili. But it goes deeper than that. The Rebbe uses this even in times when it's impossible, and that's already something that's not shaykh to a goyim. We're going to explain this. The third level is, even in times, there was a story in World War II, was a pilot that was lost. It's in Igris, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says to the parents of the pilot, Tracht gut wird Zein gut, and you'll find the pilot. It's a letter. And he quotes the story of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek had a story that someone was sick, deathly sick, and he used Tracht gut wird Zein gut. So impact change not only in regular chayli, impact change in the sense of Laman Der HaTeva. So how does that work? That's not Shaykh Bagoy. So how does that work? What does that really mean? This is already another level in how the mind works. So let's just summarize for a second. Step number 1 we had is that the mind can bring to an emotion of menucha. It's dealing with ordinary situations of life, dealing with difficult situations. But the idea behind it is not that I'm looking to change. Who knows what will happen? I don't know. I'm not going into that discussion. I'm just looking to swim. I'm not looking to drown. To swim, I have a thought process that allows me to swim. And that's the menucha thought process. That's the idea of separating the known and the unknown. Step 2 was the Yerushalmi, where not only does the mind bring to menucha, but the mind actually creates a matzah. It creates a situation. The mind creates health. That's step 2. This is a lot of the letters where the Rebbe writes to Chaylim to think good, because even the Roifim agree that thinking good will help the Chayla. Goes into step 2. You have a lot of letters. In other words, it's not menucha, but it's refuah over here.
That's not optimism.
This is deeper than optimism. The optimistic approach is usually attached to menucha. Here we're taking it a step further. We're attaching it to refuah, to change. And the Rebbe says, even mada hachiloini skimu shemachshava mayelis, that the thought process of a person begashmius helps a person in refuah, begashmius. Even my goyim.
So step 2 to get into parnasa or not?
Step 2 is negeya to
What would you refer? Not the parnasa, not the.
Yeah.
refuah, is it going to bring a person parnasa? It's going to bring a person the feeling to refuah. We're talking about refuah. Is it going to bring parnasa? If you do the right kela, maybe it's going to bring, maybe it's not. Refuah is pashit. The Risham is refuah. It's a gashmistic thing in the mind, affecting my emotions, affects my health. Step 3 is also parnasa. Because step 3 means I can be poyul a change in Bani Chaim Zein, every area of life. Pilot loss was not refuah. Pilot loss was a bracha. That's step 3. That's not Tracht Bagoy. That's not in the same realm as number 2. This is another area, and that's going to be incorporating Gebishter. A deeper level of bitachon. What does that mean? We'll see in a second. But let's just get the 3 steps. Step 1 is menucha. Step 2 is refuah, and step 3 is already a bracha l'mayim. What does that mean? What does step 3 really mean? So there's a sikha that Rebbe explains like this. Let me first say it in a nutshell, and then barichas. In a nutshell, step 3 is going to change how we encounter the strategies of Teva. In other words, step 1, we separated the unknown from the known. In step 3, we're going to change the known. We're going to change how we encounter the ordinary things we do. We look at it differently, and then it changes even the expectations that happen from those things. There's a sicha that Rebbe explains. He says like this. You see in the Gzeir of Purim, so Esther HaMalkeh had one of the most difficult missions in all of history in diplomacy. For 2 reasons. It was a Gzeir and all the Yidden, the Yoim Echad, and there was no place to run. So it's basically, she had the biggest Gzeir to deal with in all of history. What do we find? Rebbe asks a klotz kasha. She said, "Sumu olai shloishes yomim, v'gam ani v'naraisai otzum kein." Says the Rebbe, I don't understand. If you're looking for diplomacy, and you believe in diplomacy, how could you fast? Fasting is going to take away the chen of Esther. If you want to be mispalo, and say it's l'mayla miderech hateva, so be mispalo and be otzum. But you're looking to go to Achashverosh. That means to say you're looking to go b'derech hateva. You can't go b'derech hateva and put spokes in the wheels of teva. It doesn't work. So what kind of teva are you doing? It's like driving a 3-wheel car. You're going to be stuck. So what's pshat? What's pshat in Esther HaMalkeh's diplomatic mission? Says the Rebbe Hainu Hach. That was her message. And the idea is like this. Esther told the Yidden, it doesn't make sense right now that there's a Gzeira. Really, there should never have been a Gzeira. We're in the best time of Golus, Mordechai, as the times were great. And she said, you know why we have this Gzeira? Because you put your trust in diplomacy. You think that diplomacy will make it happen. You have stopped realizing that diplomacy will only happen if there's someone pushing it. And so therefore, I'm going to give you a keli of diplomacy that's going to be transparently seen. This is not diplomacy. This is actually him making it happen. And she wanted that. In other words, Esther's diplomacy was really to awaken a thought process by the Yidden. It's not the diplomacy she needed. She needed the thought process of the Yidden to change. Nehenu misudase shel Achashverosh means they had the wrong thought process. And she was looking to take away the root, the thought process. She says, you guys believed in diplomacy. And I'm looking to shatter that. I'm looking to put diplomacy into context. It only works if you realize that it's not it. So what does she do? Therefore, she had sumo laishleishis yom because she wanted them to realize, I am not the one that makes it happen. I'm pushing that makes it happen. Said the Rebbe, the same idea when it comes to Parnasa, Bani Chaim Zein. The Rebbe Marash writes, Parnasa bizman hazeh is like the mun in the midbar. What is he saying? Obviously, you have to have a strategy, and obviously in the midbar, they didn't have any strategies. The mun came down in Hashemayim, they didn't have to do anything for it. What he's saying is the thought process in the head is, while you go in the known, and you have a strategy, and your strategy could work, it should work, don't believe in it. The moment we get caught up, don't trust in it. The moment we get caught up in our strategies is the moment we're owned by our strategies. The moment we believe in statistics, then statistics rule us. The moment we play the game and we're doing it not because we believe and trust in it, it's the moment that brachas l'mayla mitechat teva happen in teva. I'll give you one more example before I explain this. Yeah? Talking to you. So there's one more example. There's a letter of a rabbi. He writes to the Rebbe. He says, why do the conservative shuls look so much better than the frum shuls? And he says the reason is because they give in. This rabbi writes to the Rebbe. They give in to Yiddishkeit, and that's how you get supporters. You got to give in. You got to compromise. So the Rebbe says, the Rebbe writes him very sharp, and he says, those who give in to the supporters are allowing the supporters to control their makar hapanasa. In other words, when in your mind, in other words, he was talking to his thought process. When in your mind you feel that you have to compromise because they're actually your support, then they will be your support and you will have to actually give in to them. But the moment you interact with them, but not that they're your balabas, but they support you, so they're there for you, is the moment you have atzlacha, then you'll be able to continue doing whatever you have to do with them supporting you. Where's the nafkamina? And I'll summarize in a second. The nafkamina of this whole thought process in all the Maimorim is three things. It's not a ruchnistic thing, it's a gashmistic thing. It's kviyas itim latoira for a balabas. It's mincha davening for a balabas. Parnasa. Why? Mincha is brought down is the biggest example for bitochin. Why? Because it's the middle of the business. It's the hardest time. And so what you're doing is you're showing that business is only a vehicle. And that thought process, if it's a real, that thought process is the yisoid of the thought process that allows the hatzlach of everything else to happen. Kviyas itim al the same nekudah. What does it mean that I'm kaveya itim? Kaveya itim means in my head. Kaveya means in the head. That means this is my time. Just like when you have a meeting, it's in the head. That this is how it has to be. So that means to say in my head, I do what I gotta do. But I don't believe in it. And so I'm not entrusted in it. And then suddenly that's a different approach to the note. That's the third level of bitachin, that for some reason when a person suddenly puts his hands into the Yevishter, tracht, good means he's trachting, his thought process is constantly connected. Not to statistics, not to things that happen. You have to play the game. You have to do what you gotta do. But in other words, I don't feel vulnerable because statistics show that Shabbos is one day off. We don't even think that way, but someone else who doesn't think Shabbos, why not? Because the chatchila, my reality is set differently. So I'm walking in, so the same way you see it in Shabbos, the same way you can see it in all other mitzvahs, the same way a person can walk into that same reality with a different reality. So the known is a different known. The teva is a different teva. So if a person has such a level of reality in teva, that they actually see it that way, then they have a tzlacha l'mayim adechad. There's a story of the brother of the Alter Rebbe, just to bring this out, because it's not an easy target. The story of the brother of the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe asked him to change, no, not the brother, a son. I think it was a son. He asked him to change a button for his chasana. It was a new style coming out, and he wanted him to change a button. It was a grandchild. No, Rav Nochum, the grandchild. Asked him to change a button, and he said he doesn't want to. He likes the style. So the Alter Rebbe promised him, Imi b'mechitzasi, I think he promised him something. So he said, a person, some fur collar. It was a style. So he said, do I have to want it to be emes? Like I can do it, but do I have to actually want to take it off? I can take it off, the gashmis, but do I have to want to take it? I says, yeah, of course, be'emes. I can't. So there's one thing doing something. There's another thing actually. He wasn't. No, he wasn't. And he always had this thing that he wasn't, because he said he couldn't. He was a real person, and And there's one thing doing something. It's another thing thinking it. So thinking it is not, it's not an easy thing to think something. You think. It's not. The second story, said one time the Alter Rebbe came into an inn with a bunch of Talmidim, and he asked the innkeeper, where do you go for a minyan? And he said, the Stokke Minyan Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe says, kennst du dich gehen in the Greise Stadt? He says, Rebbe, aber ich hab Parnasse da. The Alter Rebbe turns and David says, Mefanes Lakel, sehr viele Menschen, can't be Mefanes you in the big Stadt. A few hours later, a bunch of wagons pulled up in front of the inn. And Talmidim see, this guy is pulling out furniture, it's a tutzich. They ask him, what's going on? The Rebbe doch gesagt, man darf gehen in the Greise Stadt. Gehen in the Greise Stadt. The Rebbe just said, we should move, we're moving. So that's Tracht gut wird sein. That a guy who the pshitus mit gate, he told him, that's a thought. It's not an easy thing to have a thought process. This is taka the way he thinks. For most of us, for many, it's a challenge. But at least we have a kind of an understanding of what these three things are. And I'll review. First Nikud that we started off is a Nikud of Menucha. And I think the first Nikud is a very, there are a lot of letters. A lot of letters of Tracht are in Menegei Menucha. A lot of them Menegei Dorafur, a lot of Menegei Lamam Dechateva. But Menegei Menucha, there's a lashon that there's a story with Remendel Futafas. Remendel Futafas, there was a Yid in Russia who was stuck in Russia because of another Lubavitcher who was a Musser. And when the Musser, Lubavitcher, left Russia, so Remendel sat with him. And Fabrein with him, coming to New York, Fabrein with him. The other Yidden who were still in Russia because of this Musser, and obviously he wasn't voluntarily a Musser, he was a Lubavitcher. They did whatever they did to him. They said, how can you speak? He's Russia. Look at it. Because of him, we're sitting in Russia. How can you even speak to this fellow? So Remendel said, you have to learn from Yosef and his brothers. So the other Chassidim, I heard this from Rabbi Lefevker, he told me his father was the one that sat with Rabbi. I said, how can you say that? This Musser was the one, because my family is still here because of him. So he tells Remendel, your family is in England. So it's easy for you to say that. But my family is still stuck there, so you should goyach, So Remendel told him two things. He told him, first of all, I wouldn't tell this to you, but I didn't feel that way. And second of all, you can't live life if you don't come to that reality. If you keep on having grudges of the past and daiga, plus you can't live. So I think the first level of daiga is plus you can't live life without it. A person can't live life with daiga if you don't have some kind of balance that allows the menucha. The second level where you're goyim refuah, that's already a stronger level of the mind. The third level is mamish. That's a level of tamim tia, where a person taka walks into teva in a way of lamayla miderech teva, like the Arendar, like Rav Nachum wanted to do. And that's something that everybody rises to shaykh to everybody, but it's tougher.
I deal with parents who lose children, unfortunately. So we go mechazik them. So 2 weeks ago, there was a child. 3 weeks ago, there was a child who passed away. He was sick for a long time, and he passed away. The mother told us. She says, "I read all this for him about chizuk, about bitochen and nun bitochen, and they says you should mourn with the nemes, and if you're really gonna betzach by the Rebbe Shter, you're gonna scream by the Rebbe Shter to make you sang gesund. That's gonna happen." And she says, "I did. I screamed at Mishuna and I asked Rebbe Shter, and I talked to him all the Lashonis, and I came from the house, and then he died." What do you think to such a mother? All this situation that you represent, things that somewhat are changeable, somewhat in your mind, you could fix, you could
I can't
here,
talk.
that's it.
So I'll say one word. I can't talk the pain, but I can say one word. The third darga is not a darga of asking; it's a darga of thinking. In other words, it's not a darga of me asking for a bracha. It's a way of life, 24/7. other words, like, it's a way, take the Arendar. When he moved, that shows you a certain 100% tmimistika that he had in Stokke, in davening, in Avos Yisrael. He had a different life. In other words, really the third darga is not telling me a moment, but it's telling me a lifestyle. I don't know how many people have that. Just asking deeply and really wanting something doesn't mean the third darga. That's not the third darga. The third darga is a lifestyle. Rav Nochem couldn't do it. He couldn't think that way. It's not a simple thing. Eibusher soll helfen, Eibusher, Zeike from a level of a Yid should go and it should break Zedis. But the third darga is not a Zeike. It's a lifestyle.
But what do you say to such parent?
That she's right, and not Mosai, and she should have gotten, but that's not the third darga. That's something else.
You mentioned earlier from Lamed Vav, the Rebbe's Hanocha there seems to get the Bitachon itself will bring the Yeshua, and if the person doesn't get the Yeshua, even Moshe Rabbeinu, it's because the Bitachon wasn't complete.
And that Bitachon is a lifestyle. In other words, it's a thought process. It's not a moment. It's a thought. It's a person thinking that way all the time. That's why I gave an example from the Nandar of the In other words, it's even in Monday morning. It's not just B'shas the davening or B'shas he needs that bakasha. That's more of a lofty thing. Good, we'll finish. Maybe should help, and maybe should have whatever they need. But they can't say, and all good to God.
This year.